Hi guys, welcome to Supposedly Adults.
We're four supposed adults making sense of the world,
learning how to be a slightly better person,
and just trying to make life suck less.
That's right, so I'm Jensen.
I'm Melody.
This is Calvin.
And this is Lyris.
And the random question is, am I funny enough to be a comedian?
Hey guys, hi.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi.
So we're very excited that my friend Ali is joining us on the podcast today. So Ali is an engineer, is a PhD student, is also a comedian. So he's super cool. So we're very excited to have you here today, man.
Hey man, hey Calvin, hey Lyris. Glad to be here. You make me sound very special.
You are. Honestly, I cannot believe you agreed to do this. Thank you for joining this craziness with us. I really appreciate it.
No worries. I'm actually happy to be here. It's very exciting for me.
Yeah. But yeah, honestly, I really want to ask you this because earlier you told me that you did stand-up comedy, and I found it fascinating. Like, can you tell us a little bit more about that? Like, I know I'm not funny enough to be a comedian, so I want to know, what is it like to be a comedian?
Yeah. Okay. I think I gotta go back a little bit. So growing up, in Iran, I always thought I was funny. I think everybody thinks they're funny, but actually, I made people laugh. And like,
Okay.
I used to do like impressions and stuff. Like, there was a famous TV show, and there was a character that people like. I used to imitate them, like when we gathered around with the relatives and stuff. But like, the idea of like, I never knew what a stand-up comedy is. If you do that, you're a clown, and like, it's very,
Yeah.
yeah, like parents don't like their kids to be that way. So like,
Yeah.
and I was always told by like my parents and like elderly, that like I'm letting people make fun of me. So I never really understood what comedy is and how powerful it can be,
Mm-hmm.
until I think it was 4 years ago, around the same time. It was like, I think mid-November, I guess, that there was this newspaper that had this online version,
Mm-hmm.
like Iranian newspaper, that I used to like read all the time, and I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
They had this online comedy version that they had a competition. They put out a picture that said like, write a caption for this image in like 15 words or less.
Mm-hmm.
And I participated in that, and I got the first place, both by judges and people who voted. Like around like 10,000
Oh,
people
okay.
voted.
Whoa.
Yeah. So that was my like, okay, maybe I am really funny.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And then like, I was starting to become familiar with like what stand-up comedy is, and like Western stand-up comedians like Trevor Noah, Jimmy Fallon, Seth Meyers, people like
I
that.
love Trevor Noah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
And then yeah, little by little, I started writing jokes in Farsi,
Mm-hmm.
which was my first language, and it worked well. It made sense. I got like around 2,000 subscribers. But then,
Like
like,
where?
I always wanted
Subscribers where?
to, like in Telegram, there's this version, like there's this messaging app that like all
Oh, yeah,
Iranians are there.
Oh wow.
And then,
okay.
yeah, I started a channel writing jokes,
Yeah.
and stuff
Uh,
about
So
being a
it's like
student.
written jokes, like
Yeah,
small,
written
like
jokes.
pages.
Yeah,
Okay,
like
okay.
Yeah.
or like captions or written jokes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was interesting when I started. I started because I was a student. I've been a student for the past like 12 years, and I had like
Yeah.
a lot of built up, I guess, resentments. So they
Right,
came out as
yeah.
jokes.
Yeah.
They came out as jokes,
I
and like
know. I
people
know how
liked
you
it.
feel.
Yeah,
Mhm.
people liked it. So I started that, and then one thing I wanted to do was that to be funny in English.
Mm-hmm.
That was my issue, because like I always thought of jokes in Farsi, and like in parties and stuff, people would talk about something and I would think about something funny,
Mm-hmm.
but then it would be way too late to like I would think it in Farsi, then translate it, and the moment is gone, and it would be
Right,
awkward
yeah.
to say the joke.
Yeah.
So my wife bought me a gift certificate for Second City, actually
Oh.
2 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
yeah.
a comedy school in Toronto. Yeah, I went to that, and that was my first official entrance in stand-up comedy.
That's so cool. So you just got into comedy because like you think you're funny and you like to make people laugh, right?
Yeah, so there is another underlying reason. So when I started watching stand-up comedy, without any idea of what it is, or any idea of if someday I'm gonna go in there,
Mm-hmm.
I started with Trevor Noah, and I saw how powerful comedy can be,
Mm-hmm.
in breaking some barriers, in
Yes.
removing stigma.
Right. I remember that story he told about like his grandfather or his father with like the police. Like that's
Yeah,
the story
exactly.
about like right.
Yeah,
Do you want
I
to tell that
remember
story? Yeah.
No, I don't think
Okay.
I don't think I remember it fully. Like
Yeah.
I think everybody should watch it on YouTube. When I watched his work, I realized comedy is too powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's much more powerful than saying like words like seriously, because when you talk seriously, people get offended. But when you joke and use levity, that was the key word that I learned, levity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people understand it, people laugh, but they actually think about it too. Like when he talked about, when he has a like a set in US and says, the girl in the ocean thinks I have AIDS because
I
just
remember
because
that. Yeah.
I'm from
From
Africa.
Africa. Yeah.
Yeah, you laugh at it,
Yeah.
but you actually feel the ignorance in that. And
Yes.
that's when I decided to use comedy for that reason.
It's cool. But I guess, and then earlier you kind of touched on a little bit. You said that a lot of your material come from having all the angst of being a student. Like, I guess, is that how you come up with your material?
Yeah. Actually, a few years ago, I was talking to a therapist, and that's what he actually mentioned, that comedy is actually a healthy way to show your emotions, and mostly anger. So if you're angry, somebody starts painting, somebody starts like writing poems, somebody goes and fights with another person, somebody like goes to gym, and another way is comedy. And when you're a graduate student for a long time, I started my master's in 2015.
Yeah.
I had 1 year of break, and then I started PhD in 2018. So when you're a graduate student for that long time, there's a lot of anger.
Right, definitely.
For so many reasons.
Yeah.
For so many reasons. So I channeled them instead of like going out and shouting at my advisors and people in my lab. I channeled that into comedy, and when people resonate with that joke, it feels like, okay, I'm not alone.
But I found it hard. Like, let's say I'm really angry. How do you try to be funny at the same time? Like, if I'm angry, I'm just kind of all over my head. So how do you still channel that? Like, I don't.
Yeah, for me, it's like a full like a defense mechanism. Like in like awkward situations, like incredibly uncomfortable situation, I'll crack a joke. That's like my defense mechanism. Like somebody died, and I'm like, here's a joke, like that's like, I feel like that's I don't know if it's healthy, but I don't know. I do it, but I don't know. Like, what do you do it? How do you do it?
Actually, I do make a lot of awkward jokes when there's silence.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of the downsides of thinking you're funny. We try to make jokes all the time. Which sometimes it's not good. Sometimes like
Have you gotten into trouble because of like people thinking that you're just like inappropriate in the time of making jokes? Or...
Oh yeah, a lot. Especially since I came to Canada, like because I didn't know, like sometimes I would make jokes in a bad time, and then people I did make a few bad first impressions because of my jokes.
I mean, that's part of being a comedian. You have to, get people talking. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I guess. But like, people have different thresholds, right? So yeah, I tried to work on that a little. I think I got better. I'm not sure.
Right.
But like, honestly, I don't know how I channel my anger into comedy. It's like, I think when I want to write about something, it suddenly comes out funny. I remember I was in English class when I was like 16 or something. And the teacher asked me to write a complaining letter to the owner of a restaurant that you went to and you weren't satisfied. How would you write that? And I wrote something, and I thought it was angry. And then at the time, like, I was 16, I didn't know like comedy and stuff like that. So I just started writing, and then I read it in class, and everybody was laughing. Like, people were laughing and just having a good time. And then the teacher was like, if you write that letter as a way of complaint, nobody would take it seriously because they think you're just making jokes and being funny. So that's the thing. When I start writing, I have to, if I want to write seriously, I have to try harder than writing in jokes. Yeah, it's like easier for me to just start writing in jokes.
Right. So I know you do like stand up, and like I saw like the Trevor Noah documentary. Like, I know nothing about stand up at first, but like, I watched it and I'm like, oh, there's like a lot of craft that goes into stand up. Like, it's different between like cracking a few jokes with your friends, versus like doing a whole set, having like a whole story, and you have the whole arc, and you to like grab the like audience attention and all that. Like like, what do you think of that, or how do you learn the craft of stand up, like from like your normal jokes?
Yeah, that's the thing. That's why I took the class, actually. When I was writing for my Telegram channel, I didn't have to think about the science of comedy, because people would read a passage and then there are points in there that are funny and the whole story is funny, right? But then what I learned in class was that no, when people come to a stand-up show, like, you have to have a plan. You have to start with a premise, and then the body, and then the punchline. Like, you have to do that. Like, it's not just people won't wait for like 3-4 minutes and then until like at the end they can laugh. You have to tell jokes in that way. So what I started doing, and what they suggested, and it worked for me, was that I carried a notebook around, and then I started seeing things that were funny and writing them down. Okay, this could be a premise. This can be a premise. Being like Toronto's TTC sucking can be a premise. And then, okay, Toronto TTC sucks and everyone knows that. What's the body? And then, okay, what's the punchline now? What I noticed for my first stand-up was that self-deprecating jokes would be much easier to create, because, well, I know myself pretty well, and I know like what parts of me can be funny. So I started writing things that way. But yeah, there is a structure to it. And that's when I started. I have this notebook and I carry it around everywhere now, and I start writing stuff. And then I try it on people. I send it to my friends to see if they find it funny. And since my friends know that I do comedy, they always say no. But sometimes, sometimes they say yes, it's funny, and I keep those jokes for like when I want to do a set or something. Yeah.
Nice. But I'm just curious, because do you think you just need to find things that are universally funny? Because, like you said, you kind of grew up in Iran, and then now you moved to Canada, and then there's like cultural differences. Like, do you need to find things that are universally funny, or like,
Yeah, because that's like the same question I have because I actually watched your
Oh.
stand up say, yeah, and I saw that like a lot of the jokes are like, like a lot of it like surrounds your own culture and your own identity, which is like great. I love that. Because a lot of like drawing from personal experience is always great. But I'm just like wondering like you're doing it to a room full of like white people. Like, do they like understand like the jokes? Like, and I'm just always like, does it translate or does it like make it harder, or do you have to like end up relying on stereotypes so that people understand? Like, how do you find that balance?
Actually, it's an interesting question. So, um, there are very huge differences. Like, for example, Iranians are generally very hard to make them laugh. Like,
Okay.
very difficult. Like, they're not like they get comedy a lot, but you have to be good at it. Like,
Okay.
if you're not funny, they will just don't laugh. I make you feel bad.
Okay, they don't have to be polite, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what I like, if I'm glad you brought up my stand up. The thing is, if I wanted to do that set in, for example, like Eastern Europe,
Hmm.
I would never be successful. The reason it worked, I hope it worked in Toronto, is that people in Toronto have a lot of interactions with Middle Eastern people, like people from Iran,
Right,
people
right,
from
right.
like Arabic countries. So yeah, you have to be careful. Like I wanted to see like what's funny everywhere, and then when you see stand-up comedies from England, it's very different than from the States. Like,
Yeah.
they use different jokes, different impersonations and stuff like that. So that's one of the key aspects. Like, you have to actually know your audience. If you guys go to my Telegram channel and if I translate the jokes, most of them won't be funny to you guys. Most of them.
Right.
A lot of them, there are some that you resonate because like you guys have been like graduate students and stuff, so you resonate with the struggle.
Yeah.
But there are some words, there are some things that I use in those jokes that if you translate, doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. And like, I don't know, like, how do you actually get on stage and then like look at full room people? How do you just like get a courage and just get on stage? It's like, okay, I'm gonna make you laugh. Like, how do you have that confidence? How do you become? And you also kind of need to be vulnerable in front of them to open up and then kind of talk about your things, right? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, so yeah, it's very difficult. It's like it's not easy. I know I in my life I've been always like center of attention in parties and like making jokes with people, like in front of people, but like going on stage sorry, it's very difficult. And but the practice helped actually a lot. When we were in class, we practiced our jokes in front of like 15 people who were actually going on stage too. So they were like very supportive. Um, they commented on our jokes. It helped a little, but then on that day we went up and it was very difficult. I knew there were like some familiar faces in the audience. My wife was there, some of my friends were there. Um, and generally that particular audience wanted to be supportive. Um, so that made it a little easier. But then people who know me, who watched the video afterwards, like my friends, my cousins and stuff, when they saw the video, they all told me that you walked too much from side to side. And when I thought about it, I realized that was my method to reduce my anxiety. It was my coping mechanism. Because if I stood up in one place still, I like my body would shake. That's how stressed out I was. But then little by little it gets easier. But then I did two open mics in bars in Toronto, where your audience is are like other comedians who want to get up stage, and that was way too scary. because like they all share their Instagram. They're like, well, they have all done more than you. They're good, and then you feel like you're being judged by them, and then that's very difficult. And yeah, that was very but being vulnerable, I think, it's a good teaching moment. Like, you learn a lot about yourself, about how you cope and how you can be vulnerable, because I think if you are able to be vulnerable in front of people, then there are a lot of things you can do. Yeah, and it doesn't have to be just comedy, right? You can be vulnerable in different ways, but like I think it's a very powerful moment for you.
So like, do you have? I'm just curious because like a guilty pleasure of mine is like watching really really bad stand up. Like I watch RuPaul's Drag Race and they have like, you know, stand up like challenges and people are just so bad and it's like so awkward. Like when it does, like she tells a joke and like nobody laughs, like crickets. Like it's very uncomfortable but very like fascinating as well. So I was just wondering, have you ever experienced that before? Are you like, is that your biggest fear, or like? Have you ever experienced like a joke not landing, or like, you know, anything? I don't know.
You said like, Ali, have you failed? Tell me how you failed. That's what you asked.
No, I'm just wondering.
No, it's it is a fear. Like, it is a fear of mine. Like I think fear of any comedian. Not to be funny. The comedy set that I did in open mics, those were actually very scary, as I said. Like, it's like they didn't laugh at the jokes that I proved them to be funny in my stand-up class, but then it wasn't funny when I told them there for some reason, and I felt like really awkward to continue. And one of those two times I actually ended my set early because I felt like really awkward to continue, because nobody laughed, and like it makes you question your jokes and like
your very existence.
Yeah, your personality.
Oh, no.
Am I even funny? Or maybe like people made fun of me to tell me that you're funny, to just make me realize painfully that I'm not. And then I did a half an hour stand-up set in Farsi for the Persian New Year in Waterloo in 2020, March 2020. So it was a half hour set, right?
That's so long.
Yeah.
Right? Sounds so stressful.
Just talking to somebody for half an hour sounds stressful. So I cannot imagine.
Well, as you can see, I don't have any problem with that. But the thing was, because of COVID, there were no audience. The audience were in Zoom. So I had like a gallery view of some of the people who had their video on, and I couldn't hear them. And I was standing there in front of this camera, and there were like a few people, like maybe 4 or 5 people, like working with the cameras and stuff in the room with me. And then everybody else was on this, like on my laptop. And I was looking at them, and it was one of the most awkward things in my life. It was difficult. Some of the jokes that I thought would really make them laugh, they didn't even flinch. Like nothing in Zoom. Like I was looking at the screen for just one smile. Some like at moments, my wife, she gave me some smiles. She was also in the Zoom. But no, like it was like, and I was speaking for like half an hour. The first 15 minutes, it was one of the most difficult situations on my committee meetings were better than that. People laughed more in my committee meetings than that. And that's when I realized, okay, us Iranians are very difficult to laugh. And like my jokes had to be like funnier. But then after the first 15 minutes, it got a little better. Like I was a bit looser. I learned a lot from that experience, though. It was an amazing experience.
Yeah.
If I wanted to redo it, I wouldn't change my jokes. I still believe on those jokes, but I will change like the way I was dressed, the way I moved, the way the moments I had to pause and continue and stuff like that. I would definitely change those. But yeah, that was very difficult.
Yeah.
And then because it was part of a bigger ceremony, it was a Persian New Year. Actually, people gave feedback at the end.
Wait,
yeah,
what?
I was.
Oh gosh.
So I looked at the feedbacks, the Excel sheet they sent me, and I went straight to the comedy segment. And no, I was relieved. Most of the people were like really happy about it, but there were like a couple, maybe like. There were 200 people listening, and maybe like 10, 15 who were like, the stand-up comedian was awful.
Oh no.
It still haunts me to this day.
Yeah, but I mean, you have the rest who is like, fire. So
yeah. And, like, there's always some people that like some stuff that sticks out. And they were like, they gave like written feedbacks of like how unfunny I was.
Like a specific note on like, I feel like the delivery of this specific joke, like,
yeah, exactly. Like, I was like, oh my god, really?
But if you have a hater, that means that you made it, like, only like successful people have haters. So I feel like you made it, like having haters.
Yeah. But do you like the written content more, or do you enjoy the stand-up comedy more? Because I know you told me about this as well, where you started a page and you started getting traction, specifically talking about like, your personality, ESFJ, like the MBTI personality. So like, which part do you enjoy more? Do you enjoy the stand-up comedy more, or do you enjoy doing written part, making memes and things like that more? Well, I guess to start, maybe tell our listener, what is this ESFJ page that you made?
Yeah, I will. So it was July 2020, the never-ending year that we were all cooped up in our apartment, the first lockdown, actually. I've known my personality type, like MBTI personality type, for a while, but I realized, well, I was at home and going through Instagram for like 10 hours a day. I realized there is a lack of content for specifically ESFJs. Yeah, and for people who don't know, ESFJ means like extroverted, sensing, judger, feeling and judger. Judger, not as in judgmental, as in being decisive. I might be judgmental, but that's another thing. It doesn't have anything. Yeah. So yeah, I realized there are no like content online.
Is it a rare personality type for MBTI? Like
no, actually, is one of the most common ones.
Really?
I think the most common personality type. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think overall, 12% of population are ESFJs. One every 10 person should be an ESFJ statistically. Yeah, but there are no content. Usually, it's interesting. The rarest types have the most content online.
Yeah, right. Because they need that,
Exactly. Because like ESFJs have their community outside. They were looking for people online.
Right, that's true. Yeah.
Which was very interesting. Yeah, so I was like, okay, I started.
Right.
Why not? Like, I know some stuff. I'm good at making jokes, and I started creating this page about ESFJs. And that's when I realized how much people were missing something like that, and how powerful it is when you try to connect with people on that, on such a personal level. Because I didn't just write or make memes about like the good things of ESFJs or how wonderful it is to be an ESFJ. I started writing about the dark sides, about the vulnerabilities, about the issues that ESFJs might have, and it warmed my heart. Um, People were noticing the page, and like it blew up in a very short period. But to answer your question, Calvin, I like both like written source form of comedy and spoken form. I think spoken form can be more powerful when you're dealing with like a lot of stigma and stuff. Written people have less tolerance, less patience to go through like a paragraph of jokes and like with comedy set, but they are more okay listening to it. So that's why I started creating memes, because they are short. You can convey a lot of information in those. Yeah, so I think I enjoy them equally, but for different reasons.
Yeah. And you were at the end, you were touching on saying you connect with people. Like, what do you mean by connecting with your, I guess, subscribers or followers? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, it was during COVID, and like I think all of us felt really alone
I
at
always feel
points.
alone, so it doesn't matter.
Okay. Well, extroverts started feeling alone. Maybe for the first time in their lives. Yeah, and then when I started the page and I started writing about it, I started getting direct messages on Instagram, and people were like, "Oh, this is so me. Thanks for writing this. Like, I feel included. I feel understood.
Wow.
I feel like." People were people were messaging me like, "Oh, I finally understand why my husband did this, or why my brother is doing that, or why my mother were like this person."
Wow.
And things like that. I was like, "Oh my God, I'm actually connecting to people through memes." Such a simple
Yeah.
thing. I would create a meme, a funny meme, and people were like saying, "Oh, this broke my heart. This, like, I'm crying here," and I was
That's
like,
amazing.
"Wow, this is so powerful." Yeah, and then that gave me the energy to go on and do more stuff, and it felt amazing.
Yeah, that's so cool. And like, because it's virtual, right? But then do you still think it kind of help you also to like open up and talk to them about it, or like, I don't know, like, honestly, I have a hard time connect with people. So whenever you're talking about like open up, I always blew my mind, and then like I couldn't like really fathom the ideas. Like, how do you just like tell people your stuff like that? That's why I'm in shock right now.
Because he is an INFJ.
Yeah.
Right. That's because maybe you need to find your own INFJ.
Maybe that's why.
That's how you learn how to, open up.
Yeah. Actually, INFJs are the most unique type.
That's why they're alone all the time.
It's interesting. Okay, in the spirit of opening up, it's funny. I didn't tell people about my identity until like it was 4 or 5 months into my page, and I had like around 1,000 followers. People still didn't know who I was. I just had my name in the page. It was Ali, the ESFJ guy, but other than that, people didn't know anything about me. So it was a bit difficult for me to just be vulnerable.
Right.
But then people were opening up to me. I was this stranger. They were like long messages. They were like, "Yeah, dude, this is happening to me," and like definitely I'm not a therapist, but they just felt like okay just to talk to me. And I felt bad not opening up to them. I felt bad. Okay, I have to do something. Like they are being like vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, if I don't do the same, if I don't reciprocate, people will feel like they are like I'm a fake. I'm just pretending to have this dark side, to be vulnerable and stuff. So that's when I started opening up. That's when I started writing about my own fears, my own issues, and to my surprise, people loved it.
Right.
They started resonating. They started talking with me more. They started like I got more and more followers, and it was just this beautiful thing.
That's amazing. So, like, if you don't mind, do you mind sharing what ESFJ, like, what are they like? You know, what are their like weaknesses? What are their strengths? Like, I don't think I know anyone who's ESFJ. So I would love to know. Yeah, what are they like usually?
So when you meet an ESFJ for the first time, they are this very friendly people, like too friendly.
Okay.
Maybe at some points, maybe to an uncomfortable level.
Right. Yeah.
And we love practical things, very practical things, and we like to tend to other people's needs. So when you meet an ESFJ for the first time, it's very, very common for them to say, do you need any help with anything?
Right.
That's very common. And I saw myself doing that a lot. Like I would meet someone in Holland Bloorview for the first time. They're a new student, for example, and they just came from some country or another city or something.
Yeah.
And then we would talk for like 5 minutes, and I was like, okay, if you need any help with anything, just let me know. I'm available. Like, so that's and we have like amazing memory that like we freak people out with it.
Right.
So this is one of my guilty pleasures. I like to ask people's birthdays, like people I meet for the first time. And I know I wouldn't meet a lot, just would steer the conversation towards like their birthday. So they would tell me, and then I would connect with them like on social media and stuff, and then I would tell them happy birthday on their birthday, and they would freak out.
Right.
Because they don't know like how I remembered. And my wife and I would like, if she were here, she would say I would use that to my advantage.
Yeah.
Because her memory is not really good, and then she would tell me sometimes you will tell stories that I don't remember, but I just, because I don't have memory, I think you're telling the
You're
truth.
right. That's a good strategy, honestly.
Yeah. And then on the flip side, well, there are issues. There are like big things that might happen especially if you're an unhealthy ESFJ or don't know what your weaknesses are. ESFJs, because of their great memory and because they're empathetic, they're very empathetic. They understand people's pains sometimes better than themselves. It's insane. They can become very manipulative. They can become a people pleaser because they always want to tend to other people's needs. They forget themselves to a point that they become miserable. I've been there. That's one of the things I try to write about a lot, because a lot of ESFJs, almost all the ESFJs I met, struggle with that. They forget themselves. Yeah, these two, especially the people pleaser thing, is one of the biggest issues. We easily forget ourselves. Just get enmeshed with the other person in our life, whether it's a friend, a family member, a partner, even it's interesting. Even we try to please our managers or advisors to a very unhealthy point. We want to we won't tell them about the issues we're having with the thesis because we don't want to make them upset, which is insane. Yeah.
And I'm just curious because you mentioned like people identify with that. That's cool, but I guess for you personally, are you not obsessed, but are you like really fixated on like, oh yeah, I'm ESFJ. This is my personality type.
Is it like a core like identity that you like hold? Because I also like learn about MBTI, and I like, you know, I love doing like these quizzes you know, for fun, you know, to get to know myself. But I'm not like a person who I might, you know, like hold on to my horoscope sign like more like as an identity, which doesn't make sense at all. I know that, but like it's still fun to do it than like my MBTI personality. But I know there's like a whole community of, you know, MBTI people. I've met people who are like, you know, just going around being like, you're an ENFJ, oh that makes perfect sense, oh we'll be best friends, you know, like I've met people like that, and it's like super interesting to me.
Definitely I used to think that. I used to think, okay, you're an ESFJ, there are certain things you're good at and there are certain things you're not good at. But then as I started the page and I started talking with other ESFJs and see like some of them doing things that I thought like ESFJs normally shouldn't be doing, I realized, okay, maybe it's wrong to categorize people that way.
Right. Yeah.
And little by little I started reading on like different personality typings, like different things about like there's Enneagram, there is like there are horoscopes, there is human design. Like people are very complex. You can't just categorize them in 4 words. Being an ESFJ gave me some attributes more than other people. It's like I think that's a fact, but it's not that I can't change or I can't improve on the things that I don't have, or this is it, and I just everything that happens to me I have to justify it because I'm an ESFJ. This happened, or I do this, and I don't have any control. I use it as a justification, as an excuse to do stuff. That's actually one of the things I told people in my page. MBTI is not an excuse to do things.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know there is a huge community of stereotyping ESFJs or like other types online, and if you search about ESFJs, because there are no ESFJs that are like, they don't have online presence, there's this stereotype of ESFJs being dumb.
Really? So
specific. Being like intellectually dumb.
That's what? That's so weird.
Why? How?
I will tell you in a minute. But when I told people that I'm a PhD student, I have a master's degree in engineering, some of those people who were like thinking stereotypically, not such as other than that, messaging me like, you're lying. You can't be an ESFJ if you're doing PhD.
I'm so confused. Wait, what?
That's crazy. So 12% of the human population somehow is dumb, you know, like that's crazy.
Exactly. And they were like, yeah, my mom is an ESFJ and she's a doormat, she's an idiot. She's like, I'm saying like, you're having issues with your mom, obviously.
Right, go to therapy, man. Just go to therapy.
And you're over exaggerating and you're like over generalizing to 10% of the population, saying like all of them are dumb. Like, how is that even like that's even dumb sense in itself?
I know.
And the reason is the difference between being a sensor and being an intuitive person. So as I said, I'm an ESFJ. We like practical things. We usually, when we talk, we give experiences of our lives, exact things that happen to us. We give practical advice. We don't go too much into like intuition, into like deeper feelings, abstract thoughts.
Yeah.
But people who have online presence, they're usually intuitive types. They love
Oh.
abstract ideas. They love to talk about abstract things. So
Oh.
in real life, because intuitives are 25% of the population and sensors are 75, intuitives
Oh.
are having a hard time expressing themselves in real life. So that's how, like, they channel their anger into their online media.
I
So that's
see.
why in their online media they have a mother or a partner that don't get them because they're a censor. So
Yeah.
they overgeneralize. They say, okay, all the censors are idiots because they don't understand abstract thoughts and they don't talk in an
Okay.
abstract way. Yeah.
Oh, that is
Interesting.
interesting.
I've
I
never
did
heard
not
of
know that.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've never heard of
same.
it.
Yeah, I just think it's so great that you're doing this. Like it doesn't matter if it like MBTI is like real or whatever. It doesn't really matter. Like what's important is that you build a community where people, you know, relate and feel validated with other people and their experiences. And I think that's like amazing, honestly.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I guess to kind of wrap up, I guess you being all this experience that you have, like being a comedian, starting this page, ESFJ, try to connect with people and all that. Like, is there any advice you can give to any supposedly adults out there?
Um, every time somebody asks me for advice, I'm like, I'm not that old.
Give us practical advice.
Yeah, practical advice,
Practical advice.
ESFJ.
um, I don't know. These past 2-3 years have been like very eye opening for me. Um, I guess one thing I can tell everyone, that's what I tell my friends, I urge them to do, is learn to be more vulnerable. Um, there is a huge benefit in that. We don't know it because we never tried it. We always try to hide. We always try to like show just the good sides of ourselves. But when you
Hmm.
open up, people see you're actually a normal human being with all the flaws and all the good things that they have. One of the maybe characteristics that I had was all my friends opened up to me. They always opened up to me, and it
Hmm.
baffled me. Like, how would they easily open up to me? And I never did. Never. I would
Hmm.
never tell them the things I said today about the dark side, being
Hmm.
people pleasers. 2 years ago would be impossible for me to talk about. And my friends would always open up to me. And I was talking to a therapist, and he told me, why not open up to them? Maybe if you open up, they would see how like normal you are as well, and they would open up more. They would
Hmm.
feel more connected to you. And it was very difficult, but I started with friends who I trusted the most, and it
Hmm.
worked. It worked. I built stronger relationships. I started, I don't know, more meaningful relationships,
Hmm.
and they opened up to me. I saw this other stronger side of me, which was amazing. And if like I read this book, but by Brene Brown.
I love it. I was gonna bring her up because that's exactly what you're talking about. I love
Yeah,
her.
that was
It's
before. Like, that
amazing.
was one of my, like, one of the things that made me become more vulnerable. That book and her TED
Yes.
Talks.
Yeah.
And it's so powerful, man. It's just it's very, very powerful. And I think especially people who are coming from another country, immigrants, they have a lot of,
Hmm.
like, they have a very hard time opening up for many reasons. One, they want to blend in. Two, there's the language barrier. And three, they're just too afraid. They're just
Yeah.
they're in this new area, which is scary. And then
Hmm.
being vulnerable, they're already vulnerable, and just being more vulnerable and start talking to people about their fears is just too much. But
Yeah.
if I'm at a place to give advice to other people, which I'm not. But if I am, this is one advice I'm gonna give.
That's amazing. That's a great advice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So thank you so much for being vulnerable with us today.
No
Like
problem.
honestly, like we just met. Thank you so much. You trusted us. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's honestly, it's a great.
Thank you for having me. This, like, you guys make it like a great atmosphere, and it's just easy to talk to you guys.
All right, you too welcome. Anyways, I guess it's a good place to stop. So, okay, talk to you guys
Yeah.
later then. Thank
Yeah,
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck with
Bye.
everything.
Bye.
Bye.